sorry, you just have to kind of hang out for a little bit. Yeah. Now, if you click the recording button, why don't you pause it?
All right, welcome everybody. This is the October 12th, 2021 meeting of the Town University Relations Committee. It is 1:05 and I am calling this meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is an opportunity for the public to address the committee. Has anybody heard any requests from the public? Okay, so there's no requests from the public. You have in your packet the minutes of August 10th. Would somebody like to move approval of the minutes of August 10th?
Move to approve the minutes.
Moved by John Armstrong, seconded by Paul Aho. John, you have your hand raised. Is there something you wish to say? Where'd you go? Okay, you removed your hand. All right. We can't hear you, John. John, we can't hear you. Now you're muted.
Technology is not being friendly today.
John, is there something you want to say before we proceed? Okay. I just want you to know that Mr. Freudman will no longer be serving. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. We have moved and seconded. Is there any discussion of the minutes? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Minutes are approved unanimously.
And Lily should abstain because she wasn't here.
Okay. With one abstention.
Just so folks know, Lily is the new student government representative on.
Welcome, Lily.
Nice
Lily and I met at the Uconn peace. We forgot what the formal name was, the rally for a peaceful community. Yes. Okay, we will talk more about Mr. Freudman at a later date, according to the requests of his family. All right, the next item on the agenda is the framework for development. We have our second meeting is scheduled for tomorrow.
Thursday.
On Thursday, right. And we have a committee. And I think that I'm really very hopeful about the future of this committee. I think that we're going to have a lot to talk about. I think there will always be some disagreement, but it's a really welcoming thing that a very pleasant turn of events, and we are really delighted with President Agbanobi's stance and his willingness to be collaborative with us. So it's been a very positive development, but it's not going to be an easy one in the long run. So anybody else wish to comment on this? Ryan, Kara?
I just wanted to, so the purpose of this, so we're calling it the framework committee right now because the goal right now is specifically to talk about putting some things in writing collectively about shared goals, what a process would look like, what some future projects that we can work proactively together on. We've included some other university representatives, our governmental relations team, our chief financial officer, as well as Mike Kirk, who many of you know, and myself, and also Laura Cruikshank from Planning and Design. And as we talk about projects, we'll bring in other university representatives that may speak specific to a shared goal or a current project. And that we'll kind of use this as a sounding board in addition to making sure that we all are very transparent in understanding the challenges that we face on both sides in terms of either responding to inquiries or working on projects together. So we plan, I don't know if we'll end up meeting every other week because that sounds ambitious. But we will definitely be meeting at least once a month. And we'll talk about that on Thursday also.
I don't know if there's necessarily a lot that I wanted to add. I would echo what Mayor Moran and Kara just said. I think that, ultimately in the short term or the immediate term, focusing kind of on what I'll call policy level and aspirational goals, shared goals is sort of the logical next steps. But I think that in the longer term, as this group hopefully kind of finds a rhythm and kind of figures out exactly what it wants to be when it grows up, there'll be a combination of that 30,000 foot level, policy level discussion in an ongoing basis, but also project scale review and really an opportunity or a forum for Uconn and the town as new information becomes available, ideas emerge, for us to be open and transparent with one another so that we both know what's going on. We're not going to be blindsiding each other. And as Mayor Moran said, certainly there will be invariably some areas where we see the world a little bit differently and we might not be on the same page exactly what we want to see happen or how something proceeds, but at least we'll know early on, kind of right out of the gate, what's going on, and we can have those honest discussions and be transparent with one another. Because I'm sure everybody can relate, whether it's their personal life or family life. A key to a highly functional relationship is being open and honest and telling it like it is. So
Yeah, and I think sorry, Paul.
No, I just want to say it's a real positive step. I think we're going in the right direction, and I congratulate everyone that made it possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that, our goal is to do more than just talk about housing. Like, we really want to find some projects that have a broader implication to both communities other than the current, proposals that we're facing.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear that Mansfield's issues with affordable housing can't be solved solely by major developments setting aside 10 or 12% of their apartments for affordable housing. It's a much broader town-wide issue. And of course, that's what the town is committed to, but talking about it and trying to use these developments to further this goal is a really critical issue, and that's one of the things that's going to be part of the discussion. So with that, let's move on to economic development. Cynthia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I have several updates, but I'll try to go quickly. With respect to, I'll just kind of do them all three together, if that's okay, Tony.
Please.
Just first to update you on Explore Our Town Guide. So we're continuing to get that out to various venues. We sent it out recently, thanks to Margaret's good suggestion, to several, manufacturing companies in the Eastern Connecticut region with respect to human resources. So if some of their employees are looking for places to live, that they might choose Mansfield. And I'll loop back into that in a few minutes when I talk about our parcel book. We also, Margaret and I will be staffing a table at the Uconn Work Life Expo on Thursday. And we'll have material, we'll have the guides, we'll have material about the community center and the parks and rec opportunities, other human services opportunities, information on the downtown. So we're really excited to do that. It's about a 4-hour event, and we'll also have a virtual presence for a couple of minutes as well. We also are imminent, I hope, to have our gateway signage in on the southern end of Mansfield and the northern end of Mansfield. Just heard from the contractor, and they're just waiting for, they need to do call it before you dig, and hopefully in the next week or so, we'll see that signage go in.
Do we
This
know
was
what it
also-
looks like? Do we know what it looks like?
We have a general idea of what the design looks like. It uses the blue and green colors as part of our branding and the same font. And the one in the northern end will be more on with a stone, sort of a longer structure, and the one in the southern end of Mansfield will be more circular, also on a little bit of a stone structure. So I can send that to people if they want to see what was in the RFP. But yeah, we're excited. That's been a little bit longer project due to COVID and again, the famous or infamous supply chain issues that have come up over the last year or so. We also received 6 responses to our request for proposals for a comprehensive signage plan for the town. Just got those in, they came in Friday, and with the holiday, I received them from engineering today. So we have a core group that'll be vetting those over the next couple of days and hope to get some interviews scheduled this month. So again, that's all part of the town's marketing and branding issue, and has all been budgeted as part of the annual town council town approval process. With respect to our 4-town vitality, economic vitality plan group, continuing to do hold some meetings with different groups that are supportive of economic development. So we met with the Capital Region Council of Governments, met with the Last Green Valley on some of the things they're doing, again, to ensure that we're supporting each other, that we're not taking on things that other groups are doing. We are going to meet with the Connecticut Small Business Development Center at our next meeting. And the other thing that we are looking to do is to try to access some recovery grant dollars to bring on somebody to help us continue to implement some of the many projects that are in the plan. So that's another important piece going forward. With respect to our parcel book / marketing book that we've been working on with Advanced CT, I circled back with Courtney Hendrickson to see what the status is, and she said she hoped we'd have something this week. So hoping to close that out as soon as possible. It's been a busy time for them, and so hopefully we can close that out on our end over the next month or so. And that's kind of the economic development piece. Do you want me to stop there before I go into the partnership, or if there's any questions? Or
I do have one question. I know that Tara serves with the 4-town Economic Vitality Program. Is there anywhere else in the work that you're doing that a partnership with the university might be more beneficial, or more where you would like more work, more input from Uconn?
with respect to the plan, to the implementation of the plan?
Yeah.
No, I mean, Kara's.
In all of the things that you've reported on so far.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, Kara and Ryan have been at, almost all the meetings, and so they've been involved in terms of what's going on with the steering, as part of the steering committee. So, and again, the Work-Life Expo, that's a great opportunity for us that we probably wouldn't necessarily have if we didn't have all those relationships that we have with Uconn. So we're trying to get as tied in as we can to the mutually beneficial opportunities, I guess.
Okay. Here's my suggestion. I understand that Rob Miller has to leave at 2. So Cynthia, why don't you do your partnership report and the opportunity zone, those 3 things, and then we'll move Rob Miller in up so that he can give the COVID report, and so that he will be free by 2, and we can move on with the rest of our agenda. Is there anybody objects to that rearranging of the agenda? Okay, then let's go ahead. So finish up, Cynthia.
Sure. Yeah, I think I hit the opportunity zone because we've really, our guide is really the Explore Our Town guide, and the parcel book, I think, relate to the opportunity zone. With respect to the Mansfield Downtown Partnership, we held our public presentation on the first phase of the strategic plan on Thursday night with Street Sense, our consultant team. We had a good turnout. We had about 70 people sign up, but about 40 who attended, and broke out into 4 different groups and had, I think, a really good representation of residents, Uconn employees, Uconn students, had some journalism students there. So I think it was a great turnout, and we're putting together the notes with Street Sense, and we'll have our every other week meeting with them to debrief and then see where we are in terms of finishing up phase 1 and then start moving into phase 2, which is some of the next steps and suggestions for the partnership for what goals we would want to implement over the next 5 years. We also do have the presentation with a survey up on the partnership website. So if you go to mansfieldmdp.org/plan, you can view the presentation and take the survey, and we encourage everybody to do so. It's a pretty short survey, and that will be open until October 27th. And then with respect to events, we had our biggest event of the year. We were really happy to go back and have our festival in person. So the 18th annual festival was held not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. We had a really great turnout. We were really happy with the turnout. And we had a lot of, I really do see this as the town and Uconn coming together. We had 166 volunteers, and we had about 70 in 2019. And many of those volunteers were from Uconn. So I really want to credit Uconn for all the volunteers that came out, mostly students. And then also want to credit the town for all its help, especially from Public Works and Facilities. We had many town departments that were also represented. So that was great. Denise will be doing Denise Kegler, event coordinator, will be doing a debrief, I believe, next week, I think, or maybe the week after, with the festival committee. So then now we are gearing up for Trick or Treat, which is one of our most popular events, both from the businesses and our community. So businesses are signing up. That event will be October 30th from 3 to 5. And it will morph into the long time Mansfield Community Center Trick or Trunk, which is 5 to 6:30. So we're looking forward to that event as we do every year. We did not have it last year, so looking forward to bringing that back this year. So I think that's all I had. Happy to answer any questions, or if any of I have a few board members here if they'd like to add anything.
I just want to chime in that had an opportunity to take part in our first Celebrate Mansfield Festival as a family. And I know that it's kind of a rebound year because of the pandemic last year, not being able to offer it in its normal format. And, folks are still a little bit pandemic wary, but it seemed like pretty robust turnout, at least as somebody who was attending his first one, and really enjoyed the opportunity to meet with everybody and look forward to taking part in many of these in the years ahead. Mansfield at its best.
I will say the Democrats had a quiz, a Connecticut trivia quiz, and not even most members of the town committee could answer all the questions. So it was definitely a good learning experience as well as a lot of fun. It really was a lovely day, and the gods are with us on weather. I think there's only been one year when we had to move inside or use a rain date. So, and this day was really wonderful, and the music was terrific too. Everybody really enjoyed the performances, and I understand Rob will comment on this, but I understand halfway through the day I asked the Eastern Highlands Health how they were doing, and they had given out 40 flu vaccines and several COVID vaccines at that point. So they were very busy, and it was a real success for them. Anything else? All right, then let's turn to Rob Miller. Are you there, Rob? Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, I'll start with Celebrate Mansfield event. It was a success for the health district and our efforts to get vaccine out to the community. We had a menu of vaccines available, 2 different COVID vaccines and pediatric and adult flu. We administered 45 doses of pediatric flu, 45 doses of adult flu, and then 5 doses of Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccinations for 95 doses throughout the day, and that's a success for us. That's the largest vaccination event we've had since the mass vaccination campaign ended last June. So we were very pleased with that outcome. We'll probably be doing something regularly, I think, every year for that event moving forward. Just on the number side, before I'll finish up with vaccinations in a second, but on the number side, you probably read in the paper this morning that numbers continue to drop, are trending down here in the state of Connecticut. Mansfield is no different. We're currently with the state's calculation at less than 5 cases per 100,000, which drops us out of the town response framework for the health department, which is a good thing. At the county level, the CDC puts us still at substantial, about 65 cases per 100,000. But that continues to drop. Hopefully that will get down into what they consider moderate level of transmission category at the CDC level sometime in the next couple of weeks. We'll continue to monitor that moving forward. Let's see, what else do I have? Just on the vaccination side, coverage issues. The health district estimates the town of Mansfield's coverage, including the university residential population, for receiving a first dose at 79%, and for fully vaccinated, 77%, compared to state totals of 70%, 65% respectively. We calculate our numbers simply by adding the residential counts to the numerator in this town population. Pretty straightforward, and it gives us a much more, I think, accurate count of what the state of Connecticut's reporting out on their website for vaccine coverage for the Mansfield population, which right now, if you were to look at that site, will tell you it's the lowest vaccination coverage of all the municipalities in the state of Connecticut, which we all know is not true. I have on more than one occasion asked the state to maybe illustrate or report out that in a different way on their website, and so far the best I've been able to get is a footnote from them and on this matter on their website. So that's where we're at on that.
How are they calculating it?
Well, they're reporting it by the way the system works at the state level is individual vaccinations are attributed to how the provider reports the address to the state. So if a student got their vaccination in their hometown and not stores, then the hometown gets credit for that vaccination. And obviously the vast majority of the residential students got their vaccinations either outside the stores Mansfield area or reported to the provider locally that they live in their hometown and not in stores. So it's a reporting issue. It's how the data is reported, and that's how the state is reporting it out on their website. Yeah.
The numbers of 77% and so on, those are of eligible people or population?
Those are for eligible people.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Bear with me a second. Let me just confirm that. No, that's total population.
So if you took out the
That's total population.
If you took out the under 12-year-olds, we would obviously have a much higher percentage.
Yep. That's right.
I do want to say that from the town's perspective, the university's requirements for vaccination for faculty and staff and students have been have really saved the town and a lot of grief. And I have heard from a number of people that we are really appreciative of those efforts. This is much different than a year or so ago when the town was really afraid about what would happen when students and faculty returned. This year is much different, and we are greatly relieved that the university has taken such a proactive stance on this as we move forward.
If I could just add real quick to what the mayor was saying, I know in the early days of our local mask order that was instituted in August, as students started returning to town, to the extent that there was some non-compliance, it seemed like a lot of it was coming from the university population, which we attributed to, you know, frankly, just not being aware of what the local requirement was, not a malicious attempt to do the wrong thing. And anecdotally anyway, and based on conversations I've had and observations of my own, it certainly seems like, you know, our level of compliance when you go into any, you know, indoor establishment here is really quite high. And a lot of that is the university population, you know, student age kids doing the right thing. So I just want to echo, you know, the kudos that Mayor Moran has just said, and kudos to John Armstrong and his folks, because I know you make a really, you know, vigorous effort to stress the importance of, you know, being a good neighbor and a good resident. So thank you.
And so along those lines, if I may, while this did occur some time ago, the health district did partner with a student health and wellness during move-in weekend for this fall semester. The health district staffed 2 COVID vaccination clinics in the basement of Shippey Hall to accommodate any students that may have showed up on campus without having received their vaccination. And while we were there and ready, and we also had a visit from the president too, which was quite pleasant. That was my first opportunity to meet him, a very pleasant gentleman. While we were there ready to go, as circumstances played out, very few students actually attended our clinic, which is really a tribute to how serious the student population was getting themselves vaccinated before they showed up on campus. But we were happy to provide that service and partner with Shaw in that regard. Let's see, what else do I have? Let's see, on the there has been, I know there's been, this may not be as pertinent to the university, but I know testing's been an issue for the community and access to testing, availability of testing. Unfortunately, Generations reduced their testing capacity significantly a couple of weeks ago. And I have made requests to the state to offset that reduction. And so far, they pretty much have said no. We'll have to see how that plays out. For our part, the health district continues to list in as much detail as we can all the available testing sites in the region for anybody who may be interested in accessing testing in the area. And
Rob,
I think, yes.
Rob,
Mhm.
is testing available through pharmacies?
Yes, by appointment. Yep, they have to go on the website and make an appointment. And I think that generally concludes my my report.
Questions for Rob? Well, I have one that has to do with the work of this committee. What are your recommendations about in-person meetings?
I'm not sure if Rob heard the question.
Oh,
Rob?
you're asking me. I thought you were asking the
Yes.
committee.
You're our expert.
I think right now, obviously, we're seeing some downward trend. That trend's been in place for about 2 or 3 weeks now. You know, I think it would be appropriate to start to explore that question. I would really like to see a longer downward trend on a more regional basis, maybe at the Talon County level. While Mansfield's doing very well, it's you know, it's on the strength of incredibly strong vaccination coverage rate amongst the student population. But we're still, Mansfield obviously doesn't operate in a silo. We got a number of towns around us that are still in the red. And so I think it would be worth just delaying a final decision on this matter for a few more weeks to see where we stand.
Rob, are you anticipating, like last year around this time was when we started to see an increase in positivity rates as people were retreating inside, and of course the holiday season, but we didn't have the vaccine in place last year. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's why, deferring this decision for later times is appropriate. I think it's still a lot of uncertainty with regards to the colder temperatures, people going indoors, and certainly what we come to understand now, a certain amount of seasonality with this virus. And I think we're not going to get, with regard to that, a clear indication this week, because it's going to be a beautiful week. I think a lot of people are going to remain outdoors as much as possible. But so I would say, I think we need to give it a little bit more time to see where we're at. I do remain, while I am optimistic, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hopeful that between the vaccination coverages, natural immunity and population, that it's going to at least blunt any potential winter increase in counts. But to what degree, it's impossible to say.
And if you recall, also Halloween tends to be an active time.
Mm-hmm.
So we should likely get past Halloween as well.
One other question. I know there's been a lot of attention to flu shots. Is Uconn doing anything, or is anybody else doing anything about asking people to get flu shots?
Well, I am aware that Shaw, orders flu vaccine every year and does flu clinics for the student body.
Is Uconn recommending flu shots? I mean, is it something that is recommended for students? But wait, before you answer, that we have a caller on the phone, and I don't know who that person is. Would that person identify themselves, please?
I think that's Paul. I think Paul, were you on the phone as well as video?
No,
Oh,
not on the phone, no.
Would somebody? I'm going to recommend that if we don't know who that person is, that
We got a hand up. It might be.
Yes, Michael.
No, I'm ready to respond to your flu question.
Okay.
Once you determine.
I really want to know whether we have a welcome member or an unwelcome member in this phone. And the number is 860.219.
Oh, they're gone.
Okay, thank you. Did we drop that person, or did they withdraw? They withdrew. Okay. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes, so university announced recently that we are, and reminded students that we are in fall flu season and that it's active in the community and on campus. And we've clarified for students that we are prepared to administer free flu shots for our students. And so that is underway. And it's an annual effort on our part that is continuing, as you would expect.
And you are finding active flu in the community?
Oh yeah, it's always present here, and it emerges usually with greater counts at this time of year. It's not overwhelming or terribly concerning, but we're seeing early vestiges of it.
Okay. And my other question was, I know that you've been reserving Mansfield Apartments as quarantine. Do you have active cases of COVID?
I would have to take a look at our dashboard. I know that last week's report was that we had a few students, but a very small count of students who have tested positive and are in medical isolation. But it's been a very steady and low count all semester. There'll be an updated report tomorrow because it's our practice of updating the numbers every Wednesday. But there's not a dramatic change that I'm aware of since last week.
Okay.
Tony, that was John Armstrong on the phone. So you can't hear, his phone isn't working and his video isn't working.
Oh,
So we didn't have any, you know, crashers.
Unknown caller.
Wasn't it a Zoom bomb?
Well,
Now you're muted. Now you're muted.
I know, my phone was ringing. So John, can you hear us? Okay, and you're muted, so when you unmute, we should be able to hear you. Oh, that's a real shame. Okay. You want to try calling in again and we won't raise a fuss?
I think the issue was he couldn't get his phone like off of mute or something. So.
It didn't work. Okay.
Well,
All
he's
right.
not on the agenda today, so maybe he's off the hook for today.
Uconn hasn't activated his technology.
All right. Well, anything more for Rob Miller?
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks very much, Rob.
Welcome,
All right,
everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks. Okay, we'll go back to our regular order of items. The next one is planning and development update with Linda Painter. Linda, are you there? Welcome.
Hi. So good afternoon, everyone. The primary item that I wanted to speak to you about today is actually listed on the agenda, and it is cannabis regulations. So as you all know, the state legalized marijuana this summer. The Planning and Zoning Commission, in anticipation of that, established a 9-month moratorium to give them time to work on regulations related to the cultivation and sale of marijuana or cannabis in Mansfield. And so one of the attachments that you should have received with the packet is actually a proposed approach and framework. And so what I wanted to do is just get some feedback today. Our goal for this is to get feedback in October on the proposed approach and framework from various advisory committees that we can then review with the commission and the town council in a joint meeting in probably mid-November post-election. So just a few key points that are highlighted. Agriculture, the state did change the definition of agriculture to specify that that does not include the cultivation of cannabis. So anyone who is worried that we're suddenly going to see fields of marijuana popping up all over Mansfield as a by right agricultural activity, the answer is no. So they were very specific in that. We are allowed to have one retailer pursuant to our population. There is no limit on the number of micro cultivators or hybrid retailers. And a hybrid retailer would be someone who is licensed to sell both recreational marijuana as well as medical marijuana. We currently have one medical marijuana establishment in Mansfield. And we have traditionally treated the medical marijuana establishments as an office use because of the high security that was involved, the fact that you needed an appointment in order to actually obtain anything as well as a prescription. So we did not see that as a retail use. The Planning and Zoning Commission's Regulatory Review Committee has gone through the different types of cannabis establishments and made proposals for comment, again, by various advisory committees, as well as members of the public before they come out with actual proposed regulations. So for producers, and producers are generally defined as production under medical marijuana. Anything having to do with production, be it a producer, a cultivator, or a micro cultivator, the commission would like to tour an existing production facility in Connecticut to learn more about the odors that are associated with production of cannabis before they make a final recommendation as to whether to allow that cultivation in Mansfield. The difference between a cultivator and a micro cultivator is really just the size of the grow space. So what the commission has at least temporarily looked at before they do that tour and have a chance to talk with communities where production of medical marijuana is already in place is that they would consider 3 districts for cultivation type uses. That would be the Plan Business 1 district, which is down by Eastbrook Mall. Plan Business 3, so the Four Corners area, or the institutional zone, which includes a lot of state property. And I'm not sure whether there may be a provision in the statute about prohibiting such things on state property, but I don't know. I honestly didn't review it for the university. I would defer to Uconn to look at that. But other properties zoned institutional include Town Hall. I don't think we're planning on proposing cultivation here, but just wanted to give you an idea of the extent of that institutional zone. In terms of the retailers, again, we're limited to 1 retailer, but there's no limit on that hybrid. So the districts where they're proposing the retailers and hybrid retailers, again, the Southern Mansfield down by Eastbrook Mall, Four Corners, the King Hill Road area, that little sliver that we have between King Hill Road and North Eagleville Road, and then Plan Business 5, which is the Perkins Corner area. Special permits are required for retailers. The commission's also recommending that they would be required for hybrid retailers. They would like to get a sense from the Downtown Partnership and the Economic Development Commission on whether or not these types of establishments should be allowed in the stores downtown area. So the Special Design District and the Plan Business 2. So that's essentially Stores Commons and University Plaza. The commission does want to require a special permit anywhere these uses are proposed. And some of the things that they want feedback on are whether we should have separation distances from schools and childcare. And I will say there's differences of opinion on members from whether that should be from high school. Should we also have it from childcare facilities? So feedback on that, and then as well as establishing day and hour restrictions. They would want to be consistent with what is currently required by the state for alcohol sales. So in that case, they're not that case will be looking to liquor control in terms of how they regulate alcohol. And then if you are trying to do any type of product manufacturing, especially for food and beverages, public water and sewer would be required. And then again, same districts that we would be looking at for cultivation, and then adding Perkins Corner. Depending on the scale, so if you have a very small scale use, it's possible it may be considered in the downtown or King Hill or King Hill areas. So. And then same thing with packaging. So for example, if you have, kind of 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, that's a very small scale use that may be okay in those locations. But if you're talking about, 20,000, 40,000 square feet, and you've got lots of truck traffic coming in terms of the manufacturing and the traffic, that may not be appropriate. So, and then a delivery service, if you are looking to kind of host a delivery service with multiple vehicles, special permit. Again, Four Corners, Southern Mansfield, and Perkins Corner would be the locations for that. So, and the other, I would say, key item that they've noted is that they want to revise the list of prohibited home occupations to include cannabis establishments, so that you cannot be doing basically a cottage kitchen, doing food and beverage manufacturing with cannabis in your home. That this needs to be contained to our commercial areas. And then for laboratories that are licensed to analyze cannabis to make sure it meets the state licensing requirements, that those would be located wherever labs are permitted. And so we're looking at that separately, just in terms of R&D labs overall. So that's the general approach. Any questions, comments, initial feedback? Again, our goal is to provide this to the town council and the Planning and Zoning Commission. And Paul has been part of all these discussions, so I'd also see if he has any input.
Paul?
Yeah, I just, the general feeling on the commission was to allow retail in more than one area. and perhaps to prohibit production. So we're leaning toward prohibiting production and allowing retail.
Ryan?
Linda and I had talked about this a little bit, but maybe just for the good of the group, I want to confirm my own understanding. So, and you have this in your, the packet of information you provide, the framework document, but it is just one entity, based on a town our size. We can have one retailer and one cultivator, and that those quantities, one of each, that's regardless of their size and extent, right? So you can't like have one really big or three small. It's just one of each. Black and white.
It's so one micro cultivator and one retailer. It actually doesn't have a limit on cultivators. So the micro cultivator is the smaller of the two, where it starts out, it has to be at least 2,000 square feet and less than 10,000 square feet. It can grow annually up to 5,000 square feet per year till you get to 25,000 square feet, but that's the micro cultivator. A cultivator is 15,000 square feet minimum of grow space. So there's no limit in the statute on the number of cultivators. As Paul said, and that's why you see the language saying they really want it before they move forward with considering any type of cultivation. There's a lot of concern regarding odor and impacts.
Yeah.
And so they're willing to look at, I think would be the way I'd phrase it, visit and see what it is, but cultivation may be prohibited. But retailers is one. Again, a micro or a hybrid retailer, there's no limit. So, but once you get one retailer up until June 30th of 2024, that's all you can have based on our population. Starting July 1st, 2024, the number per capita will be determined by the Commissioner of Consumer Protection. Similar, I'm assuming similar to what they do with package stores currently.
But someone could come in with a hybrid. In fact, there's no limit to the number of hybrid retail operations. So really, there's no limit to the number of retail operations.
Only if you're not doing medical marijuana. So.
Right.
And there's no equivalent, like, so hybrid is the combination of basically recreational and medical. There's no classification that's a hybrid producer and retailer, right? It's okay.
Nope, it's cultivation. Producer was what the term they used for the medical marijuana statute, and then now they have cultivator and micro cultivator as the terms they've added for recreational.
I was just, I guess, trying to figure out if there was a scenario. No, I appreciate what you're saying about where PZC is likely to come down on cultivation anyway, but if we weren't, I guess, is concerned about cultivation, if there was an outfit that wanted to cultivate and sell on the property, just trying to confirm whether that counts towards our one retail total, or if that would be separate because it's a hybrid of a different flavor, So.
Probably a question for the state. We'd have to go back to the definitions. This act is 300 pages long. So one of the things that we included, or a couple of things that we included for you, are some summaries. One was done by the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments. It was a white paper, and then another done by the town of Southbury, just as a way to kind of summarize some of the key points. A lot of what is in that legislation appears to be kind of the technical requirements for the various types of establishments that they need to meet with the state. So what we've tried to give you is the highlights that apply to the town, what the town can do. I will note that by 10% of registered voters could petition to put a referendum out on whether or not to allow the retail sale of cannabis in Mansfield. So similar to what you used to have for alcohol, but in this case, they need to initiate that. Unless they do, it's controlled by the council and Planning and Zoning Commission. But if there were a referendum and folks said we don't want to have sales here, then that would trump anything that the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission do in terms of regulations.
I understand there are courses at Uconn on cultivation of marijuana. How do they, and I'm sure they must be growing some somewhere.
There is research, and one of the things when we had a recent project that was looking at hemp, we actually contacted the hemp research program. So I don't know if they're growing cannabis as well. I guess one of the reasons we wanted to bring it to this committee was to see if there were any concerns regarding regarding sale and production, particularly regarding proximity to the university.
Kara, Michael, anybody have any ideas on this one?
I feel like I would need to check with some other folks just to be sure.
Yeah.
Certainly wouldn't be me, you know.
Yeah.
I would want to get some feedback from others.
This sounds like an ongoing conversation that would be a good one to have. I'd also like to ask about the distinction between hemp and marijuana. The legally, because people are saying, oh my God, they're going to grow hemp, and I'm not sure that that's the same thing.
Hemp is regulated differently from cannabis and marijuana. So there are already regulations in state for production of hemp. And there are certain requirements, and I think this is where that lab testing comes in, that you're testing what's being produced to say, okay, what is your classification in terms of the THC levels that are involved.
Okay. All right, any further questions on this? Clearly, this is an ongoing discussion, and when there is more to report, we should have the discussion here.
Yeah, I mean, this is initial feedback on the framework. Ultimately, our goal is in December, based on the feedback that we get from committees now, and the public, to be able to meet with the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission jointly to identify kind of here's the direction we're going to go, and draft regulations based on that. And then there will be a public hearing before any regulations are adopted.
Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to the mural project, Martin Luther King mural project. I know that we had a community painting day on yesterday, and there were quite a few people engaged. There was a lot done over the course of the afternoon. It was an outdoor exercise. We are painting on the fabric, which will be mounted on, you can't call it a canvas because it's sort of an artificial silky fabric. I don't know what. It almost feels like a paper kind of thing. It's obviously going to be designed for to be weatherproof and graffiti proof, interestingly enough. So there's a lot of work to be done. It's a very large project, and tomorrow there will be a paint-in on campus. And Lily, I don't know whether your group has been engaged in participating in this, but it would be great if we could have a really good student turnout. Ryan?
Yeah, I think the production timeline remains an ambitious one. Their goal is to have the final product unveiled on November 1st, basically prior to Election Day is kind of the target. A fundraising goal, there's a $5,000 goal to raise funds through basically crowdsourcing. These would be funds that would be matched dollar for dollar by Sustainable CT. So every dollar up to $5,000 that's raised from private donations, Sustainable CT will match 1-for-1, so up to a $5,000 award. I believe last total I saw, we were in the neighborhood of $4,500, maybe a little bit under. So I know I plan to make my own personal donation to help get us across the finish line. I hope others will too. And we could circulate a link. This is all being done through Patronicity is the link, so we can circulate that to anybody on this call that might be interested in supporting it as well. And Kara, not to put you on the spot, but I know early on, Glenn Matoma, who's obviously also an employee with Uconn, in addition to being the chair of our Human Rights Commission and kind of serving as the head, I guess you could say, of this ad hoc group that's been shepherding the mural along. He had indicated there were conversations within university circles of Uconn providing some support to the mural. I don't know, nothing was ever really said more than that, so I just didn't know if there was an update or anything.
I am not aware of anything. If he, I
Okay.
don't know who he's speaking to.
Okay. Yeah, I can circle back with Glenn. I mean, I know UConn's obviously a very large institution with any number of centers and institutes and divisions and offices. So I don't know how institutional giving, or whatever you want to call it, is normally done, if that's normally centralized or if it may be coming out of a program or office that Glenn works with closely. But there was, I think, some, I don't want to say expectation, but some level of understanding or anticipation that UConn would be helping in some way towards this. So maybe between the two of us, just so we kind of know what we're looking at, because that might mean we're already past our goal. But also, I guess what I was going to say is, if it was UConn's intent to provide financial support, doing it through the crowdsourcing mechanism might actually be the best way to do it, because that helps us, leverage more dollars than if it was just a separate donation, if that makes sense. So that's all. We can talk more offline.
Lily,
Did you have something?
So hi, I'm Lily. Nice to meet you all, even if it's over Zoom. I haven't really heard anything from other students or USG about this program, but I know that there's like a painting session tomorrow, I think in the student union is what it says online. I could try to talk to our communications director at USG to see if he can put something out on Instagram, encouraging students to do that tomorrow. And then otherwise, if you need anything else, just let me know. I can send you my email. Because I'm not really clued in about any of this, but if you need help, I'm more than happy to.
does the USG make donations?
I believe so. To be honest, I'm not really fully on board with what we do financially, but I can ask our comptroller to see.
The project is a statewide project. 39 towns were chosen to do murals, and Mansfield was one of them. We applied to do that. And it's going to be a large mural that will hang on the side of the community center in honor of Martin Luther King. 39 murals because he was killed when he was 39. So there's one for every year of his life. We have an artist who's been chosen to design the mural. It's been designed, it's kind of a patchwork quilt with comments and quotations and comments from community members. It's designed to be a community project. So I am really hopeful. Ryan and I were both there painting yesterday. It's a huge project and a lot of work needs to be done. But I think it's going to be something that people will be really proud of, and particularly proud of if they've made a contribution to it. I mean, that piece was Ryan's oldest child's work. This piece was cut from the yellow thing I did. And so I think people will really enjoy being part of it. And I would encourage you to, particularly given the USG's commitment to diversity issues, I really would ask for your support on this. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask us.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. I'll let my peers know in USG.
Good, thank you.
And also just to point out, I'm sure you guys all saw your chat box light up, but Margaret did circulate the link to the well, not GoFundMe, Patronicity page, if anybody wants to check that out. Thanks.
Okay, there are no construction updates, I gather, Kara? Okay. Uconn housing update.
So a brief update, because I know folks have been asking about the housing, specifically related to the master plan. So there are certain elements of the housing master plan that have not been vetted with the Board of Trustees. At a point at which we're able to explain more about the totality of the master plan, we'll do a more comprehensive public presentation to this group. But what I can share that's already been public and actually was part of the trustees meeting was that the new south and Michael, if you have other updates, that would be helpful. But the new South Campus Residence Hall has been approved, and that's a 600 bed style, suite style. If you're familiar with South Campus, all of South Campus is actually suite style. And this is the building that actually was on, it was on the list at one point, and then when finances got the way they got, it actually got taken off of a list of construction. But that project should be, I think, breaking ground next fall. Is that, Michael, is that accurate? Fall of 2022 is when that project will break ground.
That's the target at this point, Karen.
Yeah.
Is that
And
the
then-
Mansfield Apartments one?
No, so this is
Oh,
South.
this is a different one.
Campus.
Okay. Oh, South Campus. Okay. So close to Mirror Lake.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
It would sit facing Gilbert Road, and it would finish the quad of South Campus.
and good segue into the Mansfield Apartments. Just wanted to restate what was
Tara,
publicly.
before you leave the subject, are they taking down buildings in order to do this?
No, this
open.
is an additional building.
Thank you.
And I think I've even talked about it before because, you know, it's a great proximity to downtown stores to have yet another residential building that's a walkable, you know, great location for students to be able to walk to downtown stores also. And then just in terms of the Mansfield Apartments, you may have read that was the design process was approved by the Board of Trustees. So they'll be starting to work on that. And that's the refurbishment or redevelopment of the Mansfield apartment site. That's really all right now, because until the projects, you know, a lot of these projects have pretty hefty price tags to them because residential properties are, well, all building is expensive, but until the board has reviewed, approved any funding, we don't go public with any of the proposed plans because they may not ultimately happen. So like I said, as more information comes out, I can feed it to this group because I know the housing has been of interest to folks.
So just the net effect of this, the new dorm would add how many beds?
It's a proposed of 600 beds.
And it's not going to subtract any.
I don't want to say that there won't be any subtraction. I think that's also for a conversation because, as you know, some of our residential buildings are older buildings. Actually, one of them, I heard a quote the other day. It was quite old. North Campus, I believe, is the oldest right now. But as of this point, nothing has been approved or on any docket for any demolition. So as of this moment, yes, or Michael, yeah, help me out.
So the housing master plan proposes the new 600 bed suite style residence hall on Gilbert Road to add about 600 beds to our housing stock and our capacity, which will then allow us later in the master plan to close and potentially demolish older buildings where we want to rebuild modern housing on that site. So at the current point, the master plan envisions the first project adding 600 beds, which then creates something that we call swing space, because we can accommodate students from elsewhere if we intend to close other facilities and temporarily lose those beds as we reconstruct and redevelop the site. And the same goes with the housing master plan with Mansfield Apartments. We do envision a short-term closure of the current complex to add significantly to that site, to add beds and rebuild it as a modern, perhaps as an apartment-style housing complex.
So what is your goal for the number of students to be housed on campus over the next 5 years?
So I don't know, because it's variable from year 1 to year 5. It would be variable based on what is closed and what project is underway. But at critical milestones like 10 years and 15 years down the road, we would conclude parts of the project, or we would conclude the first phase with more beds on campus for students. Again, that's the vision of the plan that has not been fully vetted and approved by the Board of Trustees. But the group that worked on the plan intended to grow housing by upwards of about 700 beds throughout the project.
Okay, is that based on increased numbers of students, or is that just you're increasing the percentage of students being housed?
It's greater capacity without growth in total enrollment.
Okay.
So we don't envision growing enrollment as part of this. The housing master plan just looks at the condition of buildings and the capacity in each and in aggregate for students residing on campus.
Are there any plans to change the balance between undergraduate and graduate students?
We're considering some housing for graduate students, but there are financial realities based on the type of housing that graduate students will accept. And so, they don't want to live in a shared bedroom, which undergraduates accept.
Yes.
So the revenue model and the financial model is very different for undergraduate housing than it is for a different kind of accommodation for grad students. So that's one of the questions that will take more time and more review with our committee and with the Board of Trustees. But it is on our mind.
Do you have any idea what percentage of your graduate students come with families as opposed to a single person?
I don't know.
Because, a significant portion of our low-income housing goes to graduate students with families.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are, in fact, very low income, and particularly the students who come from overseas, where spouses can't work. So it's it has a real impact on the housing in Mansfield, how you make these decisions. So that may be something that we really need to talk about as part of our framework committee, or maybe part of this committee, but it is one of those things that has a real impact. It also has an impact on our school population, oddly enough, because if you're bringing in graduate students with families and they can't live in the community, or they do live in the community, then our student enrollment fluctuates. I mean, over the past couple of years, out of a student enrollment in our public schools of a little over 600, we lost 45 kids one year. And we think it was primarily because graduate students weren't able to come here. This was I think it was pre-COVID. It was an issue having to do with immigration rather than just COVID. But certainly COVID has had a real impact on this as we've gone down the road. Ryan?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. You actually...
It isn't correct me if I'm misstating things here.
You asked one of the questions I was going to ask, which was what this reflects in terms of plans to grow overall enrollment. So thanks for asking that, and that question being answered. But just to confirm, I know things are still fluid, but did you say the apartment style housing that would be going where the current Mansfield apartments are, that would be exclusively undergrad, or could that be a mix, or what's the plan for that in terms of who would live there?
I didn't speak on that,
Okay.
And that's not determined yet.
Okay, so that's still very much.
But the plan, which is going to be presented in greater detail and formally at a later time to the trustees, envisions that as a more dense housing site, so with more total beds, and envisions it as apartment style housing, But that's all for review and consideration and approval by the trustees down the road. But we haven't said, here's the number of beds that we would commit to undergrads versus grad students, because we will spend more time deliberating on graduate student housing as part of the plan and separately.
Thank you.
Tony, I think I speak for many in the community when I say that we applaud the university for building more on-campus rooms, and that should help relieve some of the pressure on the neighborhoods.
We'll take the applause, Paul. Thank you.
Those of us who worry about tax revenue wish it were it was the taxable, but that's okay. We'll talk about that later.
We got enough taxes. We'll survive anyway.
Okay, is there anything else on housing? Okay, other business. A, discussion of how to encourage students to frequent downtown stores, businesses. I don't know where this one came from. Who was interested in this topic? Cynthia, was that a downtown partnership issue?
No, I wasn't at the last meeting though, so I'm not sure if it came up then, and I'm sorry I didn't read completely through the minutes.
Mayor Moran, I believe this was something that was very important to Mr. Freudman, and we've had it on the agenda for a couple of meetings requested by him.
Okay. Well, Kara, let's ask this question. What is Uconn doing to encourage, to make sure that students are aware of the options in the downtown?
I mean, recently, I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, John.
Hey. I had to switch off my other computer and get onto this one. So my office, Mayor Moran, does quite a bit. We promote downtown in a number of different ways. And Cynthia, I know that during the pandemic, we had been attempting to do create an incentive measure where students could come down, visit different businesses, and there was an incentive process that we're working on. It did not come to fruition, but we do a number of promotions through our off-campus housing guide, through information and talking with students. We have a weekly newsletter where occasionally we'll put information about the downtown stores. We promoted the recent Mansfield, the Celebrate Mansfield event. So there's a number of things that we have helped with and are happy to continue to do some other initiatives to get students to become interested in living downtown or visiting downtown.
One of the issues that Cynthia and I will be talking about soon is that there's a significant amount of time which is reserved for Uconn to use the stage downtown. And we've been looking for ways to increase use of the stage. So I know that there are organizations like Take Note, and certainly the Funky Dogs have been performing there. They were the highlight of the festival. But there are many other arts and performance organizations on campus that we would welcome to use the stage, as long as they filled out the paperwork and they did what they had to do that. And they would make a real contribution to the community, because it's very clear that people love to happen on events in the downtown. And we've still got some good weather, so there's still going to be opportunities. I mean, Halloween is obvious, but Sunday afternoon music, or Friday afternoon buskers or something would be really lovely, and Uconn certainly has a claim on the stage and that space to do that. So whatever we can do to encourage that would be really great.
Mayor Moran, can you elaborate please on what you mean by that we have space reserved there, and how does that process work?
One of the parts of the agreement between the town and the university is that the university gets, 28% of the time that's available for university events, performances. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it's a certain number, and I'm trying to remember, Kara, if it's 30 or I can't remember exactly. I'd have to pull the agreement, but yeah, so Uconn, now this is Uconn, this is where the crux of the issue, this is Uconn official entities. So there's a lot of entities that want to do things on the square that are not official Uconn entities. And that's where it becomes a little sticky with insurance and indemnification. And that's the issue that Kara and I discussed a while back, and we're going to rediscuss with student affairs in the coming weeks or days. So, I mean, we do have someone who works at School of Fine Arts that comes out on our lunch hour and sings and plays, and we definitely want to encourage that. And we want people to feel that if it's one person coming out there, it's a pretty easy thing to do. The issue is when you get to a larger group, and you may have other people already have reserved the square, or there are insurance questions that need to be answered, because we're trying to protect the liability for the town of Mansfield. So I will say that the partnership itself has sponsored a couple events in conjunction with groups that don't have insurance because of our own insurance. And so we have not had to deny anybody who has requested an event since the square has been in place. So I just want to encourage people, and Tony, Mayor, as you said, it's fairly easy to get to the application, and I encourage anyone to call our office, and Denise can certainly walk you through the process.
Are we going to be running buses this year to Gamble from the downtown partnership?
We've discussed it. So just for the whole group, we've done this not last year, but the past couple of years in conjunction with transportation services during the basketball games. Usually we'll start it when we get into the Big East games, which are more popular, and once we've sort of gotten through the early season. So usually in January, we work to do that. I believe transportation services is interested in continuing to do that.
Well, that's one way. I mean, people could park downtown, have dinner, get on the bus, go to the game, come back, have a drink, and head out.
Yeah, I did it once for the Oregon Uconn game, and it was very, very convenient. It was great.
All right. So I think the issues like this, I mean, one of the things that's really clear from the street sense work is we need more customers downtown, and anything we can do to collaborate on these issues. Maybe, given the fact that the north parking garage is going to be the only place where you can park for Jorgensen events, maybe we should talk about doing something like that for the Boston Pops or some of the bigger Jorgensen events as well. Okay, anything else on that? All right, the Afghan resettlement issue. The chair of our Human Rights Commission is Glenn Matoma, so we have a really nice interlocking relationship with the university on this issue of providing support to refugees. The town has adopted a resolution welcoming refugees, but we really want to do it for real, not just with a proclamation. And so our Human Rights Commission the chair and other members have been working very closely. Ryan, you spent quite a bit of time talking. Would you bring us up to speed on what's happened with the town on the resettlement issue?
Yeah, I guess, the update is basically that we're trying to, I guess, focus in on the things that the town is particularly well equipped to do, not get too far outside our lane or our comfort zone, recognizing that there are organizations that are set up and specifically dedicated for this purpose, but also want to make sure that we're able to help in any way that we can, hopefully largely with making in-house kind of capacity available to help, and that would largely be coming through our human services department, to help in ways that we can. And we are contemplating different ways that we might be able to do that. One of the conversations that we started after the last call, I think it was last week, we had a virtual meeting, was to follow up with the Oaks and see to what extent they might have housing available for whatever duration of time was needed. And obviously, we're talking below market rate here to make available to refugee families. There's additional information. So I did reach out to the Oaks and got a pretty immediate response. And they're happy to have further conversation. They asked some follow-up questions, and I'm trying to get the information back to them in terms of, you know, are we just talking about families? Are we just talking about 3-bedroom units that would be in demand? What sort of time frame are we talking about? What sort of monthly budget could be covered? You know, these sorts of obvious logistical questions. And so I think it's safe to say that or fair to say that the town's, you know, the municipal government, I guess, our role is still somewhat amorphous. Again, this is outside our sort of regular mission, but we're trying to, you know, basically step up and do everything that we can, because as Mayor Moran said, the council has clearly identified this as a priority.
I will say that John circulated to us the provost statement listing all of the things that the university is doing, and we have that on our agenda for the council this evening. Uconn's efforts in this area are really remarkable, in-depth, knowledgeable, thorough, everything you could want. And of course, the more you learn about it, the more difficult you realize the situation is, the harder it is to actually safely, comfortably, effectively help people find new lives in a new country when they bring nothing, and when the terms of their migration are continually changing as the federal government continually debates exactly how they will accept people and under what terms and with what kinds of support. So we're hoping to really move forward on this. Kara, did you have your hand up?
Well, I was just going to comment for those that don't know, we also, Kathy Libal, who oversees our human rights program, this is her area of research and her area of expertise. So she actually spoke with Mayor Moran and Representative Haddad and just has a wealth of information on the federal requirements for refugees and housing them and relocating them. And so it was really insightful, the information that she shared about what we would need to do as a community, and especially the financial expectations, and they truly are expectations of what would be required really to host families as well. So
I must say that I got some inquiries from a couple of people, including from Greg Haddad, and I communicated with Kara, and we ended up having an 8 o'clock in the evening meeting with Ellie Doherty and I don't remember exactly.
Kathy, that was Kathy.
With Kathy and somebody else too, and Greg and me.
Joanne Lombardo, Governmental Relations.
Yes, it was, the responsiveness was really remarkable, and I wanted to thank everybody for coming forward as quickly and as willingly as that. It's one of the real advantages of virtual meetings is you can ask somebody to meet, and in 2 hours you can set up a meeting that interrupts people's evenings without it totally destroying your whole evening. But
and a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old crawling on my legs during that call. So
well, cats, dogs, children,
yes.
Doesn't matter.
Humanizes everything. So anyway, so thank you for that. All right, the next thing is collaboration on issues related to race, and I think we've got the
oh, actually,
is,
poor Lily's been waiting. She's next about voting.
Lily, sure, sorry, Lily.
No, it's totally fine. Just really quickly, basically, Uconn votes is starting up again, and we're going to be having I believe this is as long as my requests go through with the student union, we'll have a table up on Fairfield Way. Noah Frank, who's my predecessor has a bunch of registration forms, and we'll hand out donuts and cookies to students who fill out one of these forms. And if they've already registered, I'm planning on having a QR code that they can scan at the table that links to a site that verifies that you're registered. And so if they're already registered, they can still get a cookie or a donut. And that'll be on the 20th and 27th from 1 to 3 on Fairfield Way, as I said.
Have you notified our registrars of voters?
So I have not done that. I did not actually know that that was part of the deal. I've notified like the student union, and I'm talking to Dawn. I know Noah has the forms from some past experience he had with registering people, but I didn't actually know that I was supposed to contact them. So that's helpful.
I'm not saying you need to, but they are very helpful and willing to help register students. So, and they are a really great resource, whether they're registering in Mansfield or in their hometowns. And of course, we have a municipal election on November 2nd this year. So generally speaking, students don't participate very highly in municipal elections. It's always wonderful when they do, but it doesn't surprise me when the turnout is extraordinarily low. On the other hand, you know, municipal government really is where the rubber hits the road, and it would be great if they took a greater interest in whatever town they believe they reside in. So
yeah, I'm hoping to try to talk to students when they're registering at the table and encourage them to vote and answer any questions they have. So it would actually be helpful to talk to the registrar voters and just get some information from them. So that is helpful. Thank you.
In Connecticut, every town has 2 registrars, a Democrat and a Republican. And in Mansfield, they work very closely together. And I'm sure that you know, you could really get some help from them.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anything else on voting? Okay, how about issues related to race? An issue arose at the festival, and we are trying not to make this extraordinarily public, but there are apparently a group of middle school aged people and maybe some older folks who approached the one of the sisters from the Black sorority with very nasty racist comments at the end of the day at the festival. We have reached out. I've reached out personally. The town has reached out. The partnership has reached out to this young woman. We certainly don't want her organization to think that they aren't welcome in our community. We are trying to figure out how to deal with this small group of people. It was a very unfortunate, uncomfortable, and somewhat shocking event, but I'm afraid that these forces in some ways have been let loose in our communities, and it is one of the things which we are going to have to deal with. I know that Uconn has had a couple of instances like this. I just wanted to let you know that from a town's perspective, we are doing what we can to address it, and we certainly are extending any support we can to the organization and to the student involved. I don't know whether anybody else wants to comment on this. Okay. Have you guys heard about this? All right.
Mayor, I've heard about it, and I can put in the chat university's bias incident protocol, which might be helpful for folks to review. When incidents of this nature occur and there is an impacted party, one of the first things that we do is reach out to the impacted party. So for example, if an incident happens in the residence halls where there could be something written on a whiteboard or something said to another student, a symbol written, one of the first responses to that is to meet with the community in which that happened, talk with affected students. So we have a bias incident protocol that's managed through our Dean of Students office. and I can put that in the chat. Just and I am aware of this incident, and I am aware that we have made outreach to the student as well.
Okay, thank you. The other item on this was Margaret's reminding me that after the student rally, I wanted to explore ways that we might work together on these issues, and I'm not sure what they might be. So I'm putting it out there to the group. The students raised a number of issues. One of them was the end of the policy which provides military weapons to local police forces. Of course, this does not apply to us because we have state troopers. And I don't know whether they have military style weapons or not, but they don't in Mansfield. The other one was declaring racism a public health emergency. And we have adopted a resolution to that effect on the council. We haven't figured out how to, in fact, address that issue because we don't have a hospital. We don't have, outside of Uconn's medical services, we don't, and Natchog Hospital, we don't have medical facilities in town. So we haven't really figured out how to deal with that. And we do, of course, have doctors, but we again, as I said, we haven't figured it out. So one of the things that I would like to urge the student organizations and anybody else who has suggestions about how the town might work with the university to deal with some of the race issues, I would be grateful. One of the issues is Indigenous Peoples Day, by the way, and we have declared Indigenous Peoples Day to be yesterday, but we haven't done very much to celebrate it or to honor it. And that's one of the projects that we will have going forward.
Today, actually. Today's the 12th, right?
Yeah, but the holiday was
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
Okay, anything else? Future agenda items? Nope. One of the things we're going to have to do in the future is introduce you to our new resident state trooper. Our resident state trooper is Sergeant Stephen King. I think have we talked about him here before? Okay, so at some time we will bring him on board to meet you. And I know that he is already talking with the Uconn Police Department, so I hope that the collaborations which we've developed in the past will continue. All right, I can't think of anything else. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adjourn unless somebody else has something else they want to say.
I move that we adjourn.
Moved by Paul, is there a second? Seconded by Kara. Anybody object to adjourning? Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thanks all. Kara, talk
soon.
soon about Thursday.
Yeah, today is not a good day.